Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Dad Batch podcast. This is going to be our Andor initial reaction review. We were fortunate enough to see it last night at the El Capitan Theater, thanks to our friends at Disney and Lucasfilm for inviting us, and we got to see the first 3 episodes. So with us, your other space daddies who were that fortunate. First up, he's Echo, Rami Shanaday. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. I'm tired. I'm recovering from last night, but it was a blast.
Nice. And also with us, the Prince of Paint. He's your Chrome member, John Rodriguez. How are you, sir?
Hey, yo. Still dreaming of that KBBQ we had.
Oh, man.
After.
I never thought you could be hungover from Korean barbecue, but I experienced. That was a good experience, man.
It's a real thing. Yeah. I'm glad we went.
Well, all right, guys, let's get into it. So we saw the first 3 episodes of Andor, and I mean, I'll start off by saying, man, I completely blew me away. My expectations were not only met, but exceeded. I was not prepared for what we saw. It is, in my opinion, the Star Wars that I have been waiting for since I became an adult. I mean, this was, it was adult themed. It was not scared to tell adult themed stories. I mean, there were people getting killed. There were people having way more than a kiss than what we've seen in Star Wars. And
sure.
And they are not afraid. Disney and Lucasfilm, not afraid to finally give Disney Plus some non-vanilla content.
That's a good way to put it.
What did you guys think?
Yeah, I think, if you enjoyed Rogue One, you're going to love this. All of the things that a lot of us enjoyed about Rogue One would be how it was back to that kind of gritty, industrial kind of vibe. All of that carries through into this. So a lot of the same kind of thematic feel to it. You're right. There were some very mature topics that they tackled, but not in a way that were like, you got to, put the kids to bed first. So there's nothing like that, but it was definitely not afraid to go places where we haven't seen them go before. So I think we're in for an interesting ride here with this. It's even the characters that are new, you fairly quickly figure out how they fit into the equation. So I like the casting that so far that I've seen is fantastic.
Yeah. And just to echo what Rami said, it definitely, if you liked Rogue One, you're going to like it. It also gave me some Blade Runner vibes, a little bit in certain spots. Cause, I won't say why, but, it did have a lot of the aesthetics that I like. And like Rami said as well, it's very gritty, very adult themed, without crossing the line too much, I guess. And yeah, I sorry, I forgot what I was actually going to say, but that is pretty much, without spoiling anything, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, a lot of the aesthetics, everything felt new to Star Wars, but familiar at the same time.
Oh, I remember what I was going to say. I'm sure you guys remember when The Mandalorian came out, and like the first episode or the first few episodes where we were getting that super gritty, like it's more Western style, but it was like this Star Wars that we were waiting for, kind of like what Steven was saying, like this is what we've been waiting for. It gave me that kind of feeling. It's not the same type of show at all, actually, but it gave me that feeling where it's like, wow, this is what adult fans we're waiting for. And as far as expectations, I didn't know what to expect because we didn't get much, information about the show other than it's Cassian Andor and maybe telling his story, how he became the character he was in Rogue One. But more than that, we don't know, so everything's a surprise, and it's been I've liked it a lot so far.
Yeah, I think the trailers that we saw really didn't give anything away other than what you should have expected from something that would be a Rogue One, prequel type thing. Now it's my turn to forget what I was going to say.
Well, it was like we've seen Disney trailers before and Star Wars trailers before that have made us feel one way or set an expectation, and then when we see the actual film or episode, it's not necessarily the same thing. But this one, after if you guys want to know what Andor is all about, watch the trailer and multiply it by 10, because that's exactly how these episodes are. It's gritty, it's suspenseful,
and I feel like it's not what you might expect, though, because I don't know how to explain these things without spoiling things, but it's like I mean, maybe in my head I might have expected one thing, and it's giving us other things that we didn't even know we needed or that we wanted to know, and it's actually great. I think it's great, at least.
What did you guys think of the music?
I liked it. There was like one song that was like a little different than usual, like sort of electric guitar vibes.
Yeah, was that
where,
at the end of the second of the 3 episodes? Is that?
I think so. Yeah, where he's walking.
Yeah, so look, the music very much fit this is a drama set in Star Wars vibe. Nailed that.
Mm-hmm.
There was a moment there at the end of the second of the 3 that I felt like it started to pull me out a little bit, because it didn't feel like Star Wars music often has a very kind of cultural feel to it. Like it's tied, just like the planets in Star Wars are all different, individual biomes. Like, Hoth does not have a sunny side of the planet. It's all ice, right? Like, so the music is often very similar. There's like a tone that will be consistent through something.
Mm-hmm.
That there was a spot in the music that it kind of pulled me out. Didn't fit with what I felt like the rest of it was doing, but otherwise, I think it was like I said, space Star Wars drama. The music nailed it.
I feel like, so Nicholas Britell is the composer for the show, and I felt like he was very smart with what instruments were being used, because I felt like there was a lot of strings that were a lot of stringed instruments used, which was generating a lot of that tension.
Yes.
Versus like the John Williams, like trumpet and fanfare, heroic thing. This was very tense.
Yeah. Yeah. And then in that one segment that I think felt a little different, they really welled the music up, like the volume came up, and they introduced a lot of additional instruments that were not part of the otherwise normal kind of theme that would have been for the rest of the film. So
totally.
Yeah, I feel like they're taking some risks, and those risks are paying off, in my opinion. I don't want to say they're paying off in general, but in my opinion, I feel like that one song that we were just mentioning that's a little different, and at first I was a little confused. I'm like, oh, this sounds kind of weird, but then it kind of went with it. In my head, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. The tension's building, and this is setting the mood for what comes next, and it did for me.
How do you guys feel about seeing everything that we saw not being part of the universe that we've seen thus far?
I like it. It's a big universe. There has to be different things, different planets, different. It can't all be Tatooine,
Yeah. Yeah. Even
like
even in Obi-Wan. Sorry.
When we saw Mandalorian, which is essentially, the new universe that's been unexplored, right? Everything felt familiar. Right. They're dropping in things that we've seen before, like Jawas and
Tusken Raiders
and Stormtroopers and all this stuff. Andor, all new.
Yeah, so far there's nothing familiar about it, other than it being Star Wars, and because it still has a bit of that identity in there. It's not completely different. It gives you vibes from other it might remind you of something else, but it's still very much Star Wars. And but like Raimi was saying earlier, the themes are more adult centric. A kid might not get the nuances that are going on, but we would, because we know, we can catch what they're talking about a little quicker than a kid might. And
that actually reminds me of the dialogue just in general. It's very smart. It's very fast. And the show is almost unapologetic in that regard, where they know who their audience is at this point, and they're not trying to pander to the fan service. They know exactly what story they're trying to tell, and they're getting there.
Yeah. And this is what the director was saying before we started watching everything. He was thanking Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm for trusting him and giving him this opportunity to sort of do something different, and try something that is still familiar, but it's pretty new. It's a different feeling. It's a different, like the music, the planets.
I think he called this a gamble, right?
I think it's paying off.
He did, yeah.
Yeah.
Raimi, what were you going to say earlier?
I don't remember.
You don't remember?
It was contextual at the time, but that was it.
So let me ask you guys, what do you guys think about, because we are the Dad Batch, all new stuff that we're seeing? What do you guys think about this all new costume design?
Well, overall, I like it a lot, but they are incorporating some things that have always been like a no-no in Star Wars, like zippers,
Mm-hmm.
which has been around since Empire. Like that's not something new, but like denim.
But they're not bothering to hide it, right? They're being very deliberate about showing those things off.
It's out in the open, yeah, and that might be just a cultural difference from the planet they're on, or because mostly there aren't any openings on jackets, and there's no buttons and there's no zippers, but all of a sudden we're starting to see a little more of that, somewhat. And the only way I could think to explain it is maybe that's just how they do it over there compared to the Outer Rim or
the visual
else.
language is just different.
And yet it didn't. There was no moment where I saw like a zipper and I thought to myself, "Wait, what?" Like none of it pulled me out of it. So they wove it in appropriately, if that's the case.
They
didn't overdo it.
What did pull me in though, and didn't pull me out, but what pulled me in was on this planet where everything is new, the design language felt very Star Wars Rebels.
Yeah, the color palette, and I think we had talked about that. And we could talk about that. That was there were scenes from that planet in the trailers that we've seen, and we commented at the time. It's like that's very Rebels palette right there, with the oranges and yellows and some of the even
whites and grays,
even some of the textures that you see, and some of the I saw hats and things that were like, oh, that's straight out of Rebels.
Yeah,
totally.
But I think that's really smart though, because we don't see that really in live action, and it's a good way to sort of connect, at least sort of connect other stories to like, oh, those guys are wearing similar things to what we saw in an animated show years ago.
Yeah,
and it makes sense. It fits.
Absolutely. Okay, guys, let's give these first 3 episodes your final and overall review.
Well, I'll say the first one was a bit slow, just because they're getting started. I mean, I guess it wasn't that slow because there were also pretty heavy moments, but I really liked it. I like the direction it's going in. And they're giving you tidbits about certain characters that you would have never known otherwise. Or like backstory, flashback type things about certain people that you would never know unless you were watching the show. So I absolutely love it so far, and and the costumes are amazing. I like the costumes a lot.
Raimi?
Everything that John said and then some, right? So I think it was everything that I hoped it would be. I do think that we're going to get to see some gritty stuff. I think we're going to get to see, we still haven't even scratched the surface on some of the characters that we know are in the show. We've really only been introduced to a small slice of that so far. So I'm excited to see if they can take and add those additional characters in and keep the momentum going that they've got with what we saw last night. It's going to be knocked out of the park.
Absolutely. For me, I think that normally these shows, these Disney Plus shows, regardless of franchise, they start strong and then they kind of like go down a little bit and then come back up, and there's like an ebb and flow to it. These first 3 episodes for me, it started strong and it's been building up, and by the end of episode 3, I was just ready for more. Yeah. And
someone yelled one more.
Yeah.
And I'm excited. I'm excited to explore this new part of the universe that we're getting. So
yeah.
All right, guys, that pretty much does it for our non-spoiler review for the first 3 episodes of Andor, starting September 21st. If you like what we do, give us a good review on your podcast app or subscribe to our YouTube channel right down here. And you can follow me, Stevie Kicks, on all the socials. Raimi, where can people find you?
Dadbatch.com.
And John, where can people find you?
Alpha Ignition.
Awesome. Thank you guys again for listening to the Dad Batch podcast. And until next time, enjoy your spice responsibly.